Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles, now we're going to open up the floor for our subscribers, and this is why you subscribe to the show, because we want you to be a part of Eagles Now, just like I am as the host. You have a forum here to ask questions, to pass along your analysis for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we feature you on the show. First, though, make sure you join our show on Sunday, another watch party, NFL Week 6, as the Birds take on the New York Jets. Our pregame show starts at 4 o'clock Eastern. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications by hitting that bell icon. Therefore, whenever we go live, whenever we push out a show, you will be notified. Let's start off with a $10 donation coming in from our Super Chat MVP, Paul. How about them Eagles, 5-0? Should we trade Quez Watkins and Derek Barnett for some draft picks, or get other players to help at safety and wide receiver? Or do you have a better idea? So let's tackle this kind of frame by frame here. I said earlier this week, it's time to trade Quez Watkins. I think that his time with Philadelphia should be over. And if you can't find a trade partner, I want to see Olamide Zaccheaus play more than Quez Watkins. I think he's the better player. I think he's the better fit. And at some point, we have to stop just gushing over Quez Watkins and his speed. The speed is cool when you don't have pads on during training camp, when Quez, every single year that he's been in the NFL, shows off the burners and he beats opposing DBs in one-on-one drills. But that is never translated really consistently to the NFL level. And Sunday's game against the Los Angeles Rams last week, what really frustrated me, little bubble screen to the outside on a 3rd and short. You have it blocked up by A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. All you have to do is split those two blocks. First down, move the chains. You're in the red zone. Hopefully you score a touchdown and you don't kick a field goal. Instead, Quez tried to use that speed to get out to the outside. He gets stopped. Like, that's one frustration that I have for Quez over time, and those frustrations have accumulated to the point where he consistently shows to me he doesn't really have a great feel for the game. So I think that you could trade him away to a team that is in need of a vertical wide receiver, and maybe with some more playing time and a proper role, he becomes a little bit of a better player. He's also on an expiring deal. So if you don't think that you're going to bring him back and you think Zaccheaus might be the better player, why not get some value back? For Derek Barnett, if there's a team willing to offer you a lot of draft compensation for an edge rusher who does have pass rushing ability, maybe Howie Roseman could be enticed there. As for safety, I think that the Eagles might look to make a move there to just stockpile that position. Aside from Reed Blankenship, look out for corner as well. Lion Fighter, $5 super chat. What's poppin', fam? I like the Eagles over the Jets, but I don't think that it will be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either. I think this Jets team has been really formidable this year, and a big reason for that, they're better coached than you would think, because you hear New York Jets and you think they're going to be abysmal. This is not a joke organization. If they had Aaron Rodgers, I think they'd be in a much better spot, and they could be serious players in the AFC. Zach Wilson is not Aaron Rodgers. We know that. But Zach Wilson is also not the Zach Wilson that we saw last year when he struggled at every level of competent quarterbacking in the NFL. Last 2 weeks, he started to turn a corner. He played well against the Chiefs. He played well in a win against the Denver Broncos. You can't sleepwalk this opponent. Why I think it's going to be a hard matchup, though, it's not because of Zach Wilson and the offense. Garrett Wilson, great weapon. Their offensive line, putrid. Eagles' defensive line should have a day. It's the Jets' defense that I think poses a very solid and formidable matchup against this Eagles offense, because they have the physicality element along the defensive line, but also the sideline-to-sideline speed to combat what Philadelphia wants to do in spreading the field. Bird Gang Eagles, how do you feel about the Eagles being 5-0? I still think we have some stuff to fix. Do you? Yeah, there's definitely some changes and some alterations, improvements that the Eagles have to make. But here's the thing. Nobody remembers what a team did in September. Nobody remembers who was number one in the power rankings in October. We remember you for what you do in December, January, February. And right now, every week, the Eagles have won with a different style. And what I like, which translates to all months of the season, playoffs and regular season, the Eagles' ability to take your will at the line of scrimmage and wear you down in running the football offensively, and then defensively, an overpowering defensive line that throughout the course of a 60-minute game will also wear you down, get after the quarterback, and has been very good against the opposing rushing offenses. So I like the makeup of this team. They're well coached. They have a lot of talent. They haven't played their best football yet, but that's fine because when things click, hopefully if things click, they can be a scary team in this league. Andrew Nathan. Chase, what do you think about Howie beefing up our defensive line instead of the secondary? 2024 third-round pick and a player for Quez and Barnett for Brian Burns. We have the cap for next year to extend him. Howie Roseman is always going to find a way to clear up some money on the cap. He is a salary cap guru and a salary cap genius. If the Eagles could find a way, and the package won't be Quez and Barnett because that's not good enough for a player the caliber of Brian Burns, but if the Eagles could bring in a player like Brian Burns, he's one of the best edge rushers in the game. You know, he's drafted out of Florida State. Every year since then, he's been an impact player for Carolina. I'm kind of an advocate for this thought process when building a team. You can never have enough edge rushers on a squad. And I know right now, like Philadelphia is kind of loaded along that defensive line. You stockpile that position and you bring in another player like that. Again, that helps you win in December, January, and February when you have all of these options to really rush the quarterback. So Brian Burns would be great. I don't think it happens. The Carolina Panthers are in an interesting position. They have not won a game yet, and Brian Burns is going to be a free agent this offseason. So if they get blown away by an offer, not only do the Eagles have the money to pay him, they have a lot of draft capital to give up to a Panthers team that does not have a first-round pick in the 2024 NFL draft because they gave that up in that trade with Chicago, sending away DJ Moore to move up to number 1 to get Bryce Young. Ryan Rowe, certainly one of our real ones. Brian Johnson needs playmakers and more targets for Dallas Goedert and producing more in the red zone, run the ball more often. So can we go to the quote graphic for DeAndre Swift? Because you talk about running the ball more in the red zone. Let me just throw this out there. How about just getting DeAndre Swift involved more in the red zone? Because on red zone drives, when DeAndre Swift gets a touch, look at how things have gone for Philadelphia here. Field goal, touchdown, 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 field goal, field goal. That is 6 touchdowns in 9 red zone trips for Philadelphia. Feed DeAndre Swift the football when you're in the red zone because those numbers not even close to as efficient as they are with Swift as compared to when Gainwell is on the field. Also, Ryan Rowe. Let me throw this out there. Devontae Smith has 2 red zone targets so far this year. Gotta find a way to get him the football. Who you got on Sunday? PHI for the Eagles, NYJ for the New York Jets. I'm going with the Eagles to win this game. I think it could be a hard-fought battle through 2.5, maybe even 3 quarters, but the Eagles end up pulling away, and they win that game 28-20. Nick Stone, how many sacks for Jaylen Carter against the Jets? This Jets offensive line is not good. He had 2 sacks against the Rams. Let's go a subtle 1 for Jaylen Carter. That brings his total up to 4.5 through 6 games, well on his way to winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Andrew Nathan, am I the only one that noticed after the first 2 LA drives, Desai switched in Roby, and his veteran experience definitely showed. He was communicating well with our veterans on Sunday. You're not the only one who noticed, Andrew Nathan, because I noticed as well. Go back and watch our Monday video. It's not a humble brag. I'm just messing with you. But I did talk about this in our recap on Monday, that the Eagles, after the first 2 drives for the Rams offensively, in which they scored on back-to-back drives, 1 in the first quarter and then 1 to start the second quarter, the Eagles defense made some great adjustments in that second half. Sean Desai outcoached Sean McVay. They pitched a shutout in the second half and gave up less than 100 yards of offense. Bradley Roby was a big part of that. On that first drive in particular, we saw a lot of Mario Goodrich, and we saw a lot of Eli Rex. After that, we saw a lot of Bradley Roby, and a couple of days after he got signed, he did play well. How about that? You know, he's doing some workouts for some other teams. He's been in the league for a long time, but he's a free agent. And then the Eagles pick him up, and they're like, you know what? In a few days, we're going to need you to match up with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. You down? He said, I'm down, and he certainly passed the eye test. Pokies Feel. Do you think the Eagles' pass rush will be as good as it was last year? Up to this point, through 5 games, they have not been as productive as far as sacks go. But I think that as the season progresses, they can be dominant like they were last year. And we've certainly seen the moments of this Eagles pass rush being a very special one. You know, when you lose Javon Hargrave and 11 sacks, that's pretty difficult. They replaced Javon Hargrave with Jaylen Carter, who down the road I think is going to be a better player. Will they have 70 sacks? No, I don't think they're going to have 70 sacks. Are they going to be disruptive? And could they make improvements as the season goes on? I do think that. Wavy D, Yo Chase, do you think it'll make much sense to sign and trade for a vet slot corner this season, even though we picked up Isaiah Rodgers for next year? I think he's our answer for the slot cornerback. He could be a good answer for slot corner because he's a really solid player. He's also a really good returner. For those not familiar, Isaiah Rodgers, he's suspended for all of 2023 because he gambled in the vicinity of the Indianapolis Colts facility. He's going to be a good player in the future. I like basically giving up nothing for him this year. We'll see what Bradley Roby can do. If Bradley Roby plays like he did against the Rams, they're going to continue to give him some opportunities at that slot spot. You know, he hasn't succeeded on the outside, but that's why you have James Bradbury and Darius Slay. So see how Roby plays is my answer to that. And then if not, maybe you make a move, and then you know in the chamber, you have Isaiah Rodgers for next year. Bergang Tommy V, will Haason Reddick step it up? Did you watch the game on Sunday against the Rams in Week 5? He closed the game out. He was the 2008 Bradledge for the Phillies for the Eagles on Sunday. Back-to-back sacks to clinch that game for Philadelphia to end any hope that the Rams had of coming back in that game. And that was the Haason Reddick that we saw in 2022, who had 19.5 combined sacks in the regular season as well as in the playoffs. David Marcella! Look at that fresh profile picture. My man changed it. Now you get a look at that glorious beard right there, which can rival Jason Kelsey's. How about them Cowboys? Reddick is heating up. Whole defensive line is getting better. Exactly. You know, I've mentioned that a couple of times, so I don't want to repeat myself too much on this show. But why I like where the Eagles are at right now. They're 5-0. They haven't faced an extraordinarily difficult schedule, but they're stacking wins right now before the difficult start of the schedule. And when they take on some of these tough teams, hopefully at that point, that's when things are coming together defensively as well as offensively. What you want to see from a team throughout the course of a marathon of a season at the NFL level, continued progress, continued development, making adjustments, and making progress. And the Eagles on both sides of the ball have been able to do that. You know, I'd say throughout the first 3 weeks, they're playing C football offensively. Last couple of weeks, they've been B to A at some points during a game. Eagles defensive line really starting to pick it up. And when they do that, it makes a secondary's job easier. And yes, you're right. Haason Reddick really starting to come into his own. If you enjoyed today's show, that means that you're a real one. And I want you to type real one down in the chat so that we can pay you some respect and some appreciation. So drop that down in the chat. Don't forget to subscribe. And thanks to all of the great questions that came in from all of our great subscribers.